So we've reached the end of the 2020 baseball season, and the playoffs are going on without the Phils. Even though all the Phils had to do was win one of their last 3 games with Tampa Bay, and they were in. So rather than dwell on the disappointment of missing out on the postseason, again, for the 9th season in a row, let's think about better times. Let's think about a time when the Phils were in the playoffs perennially. And in particular, let's talk about a game that made baseball history. I'm talking about October 6, 2010, the day Roy Halladay threw a no-hitter in the playoffs against the Reds. Welcome to Philadelphia Baseball History. On this channel, we talk about the history of baseball from the A's to the Phillies to the 19th century. And sometimes we talk about contemporary baseball issues. So if you love baseball and if you love Philadelphia, stick around and subscribe to our channel. So our story actually begins right after the 2009 World Series. You see, on the plus side, this was the second year in a row that the Phillies had won the National League pennant and made a trip to the World Series. And Philadelphia had a very talented team. But let's be honest, Philadelphia sports fans have something of an inferiority complex. We've seen other cities build sports dynasties. In fact, you take another city that had a long playoff drought like Boston. They invested the time and the resources in their sports franchises, and suddenly they became a city of sports champions. And sure, for Philadelphia fans, winning the World Series in 2008 was great. But we wanted more. We wanted a dynasty. Now, Philadelphia had a baseball dynasty in the past. In fact, Philadelphia had 2. The first was from 1910 through 1914, when the Philadelphia A's won 3 world championships during that period. And then the second was from 1929 through 1931. Again, the Philadelphia Athletics went to 3 straight World Series. They won 2 of them. And ever since 1954, some Philadelphia baseball fans have argued that the wrong team left Philadelphia. You see, back then, the Phillies had yet to win a world championship. So it always seemed like the Phillies had something to prove. And that's why, to this day, Phillies fans won't be satisfied until we can point to a string of world championships that create a Phillies dynasty. The 2009 World Series was particularly disappointing. Philadelphia had a highly competitive team, and even though we'd won the World Series the year before, Phillies fans were hungry to prove that we were the best in baseball. But we ran into that Yankees Juggernaut. You see, Phillies fans have many reasons to hate the Yankees. First, New York is our loud neighbor to the north, and quite frankly, Philadelphia has never gotten over the fact that we went from being the largest, most important city in North America to playing second fiddle to New York City. And that's why, at the end of the 19th century, when we built our city hall, it had to be the tallest building in the world. And we were still hurting over our decline, especially to New York City. And you add to that the fact that the Yankees have the resources and the motivation, essentially, to buy championships. The Yankees are always one of the top players in the free agency market. They're always trying to lure the best players to come to their city. No matter how hard a team from a smaller market may try to develop their homegrown talent, sooner or later, the Yankees are going to come knocking, and waiting their checkbook, they're going to raid that young talent and try to bring them to New York. Moreover, Philadelphia fans have long memories. Now, there may not be so many people around who actually lived through the 1950 Whiz Kids, but that 1950 Phillies team still holds a warm spot in the hearts of many Phillies fans. And even today, that 1950 team is as much beloved by Phillies fans as the 1980 team or the 1993 team. So when the Phillies faced the Yankees in the 1950 World Series and were swept, well, it hurt. And it's a wound that still smarts. And because of that, Phillies fans are always looking for an opportunity to avenge the Whiz Kids. In a way, that's why the 1964 collapse still hovers over the city like a rain cloud that just won't go away. If the Phillies had not suffered that infamous collapse in 1964, then their opponent in the World Series would have been the Yankees. In 2009, with the Yankees being the representatives of the American League, the Phillies once again had that opportunity. But in 6 games, we saw it slip through our fingers. So in the offseason, there was a lot of pressure on the Phillies organization to continue to improve. And the winter started off with some good news. On December 16th, the Phillies made an announcement. They had traded with the Blue Jays for their 10-year veteran, Cy Young Award-winning right-handed pitcher, Roy Halladay. Doc to his friends. But on that same day, we had some bittersweet news. You see, the Phillies announced in a related transaction that they had traded away their left-handed starter, Cliff Lee. Cliff Lee was an 8-year veteran who also earned the Cy Young Award in the American League. The Phillies acquired him right before the trading deadline at the end of July in 2009. He turned out to be the boost that the rotation needed to ensure their second National League pennant. Immediately after the World Series, the Phillies signaled that they wanted to keep Cliff Lee around. They'd picked up the club option on his contract for another year. But I guess by December, the Phillies had just come to the conclusion that they already had enough quality left-handed pitchers in their rotation, the other one being Cole Hamels. But looking on the bright side, the Phillies had every reason to be optimistic about their new acquisition. At the time, Halladay had a career winning percentage of .661. He had just shy of 1,500 career strikeouts. And in his last 2 seasons with the Blue Jays, he had posted ERAs of .278 and .279 respectively. The Phillies opened the 2010 season with a bang. In the offseason, they had also reacquired Placido Polanco. He had been a Gold Glove second baseman with the Detroit Tigers, but he came to Philadelphia to play third base, and Polanco hit a grand slam on opening day in Washington. That was followed up with a Ryan Howard home run. That home run tied Howard for 5th place along with Greg Luzinski for all-time career home runs as a Philly. And the next day, Howard claimed 5th place all for himself as he hit another home run that passed the Bulls' total. The Phils would take 2 out of 3 from the Nationals. They started with a 12-10 record in April and then a 16-12 record in May. By the end of May, they were only a half game behind the Braves. Now, the Phils suffered their traditional June swoon, and by the end of June, they had actually fallen to 3rd place, although they were still over 500 at the time. And by July 22nd, the Phils had fallen to their largest deficit behind Atlanta, 7 games. But on July 27th, the Phils once again engaged in a trade to shore up their rotation. This time, they acquired right-handed pitcher Roy Oswalt from the Houston Astros. But the Phils buckled down in the last 2 months of the season. By September 7th, they were a half game ahead of the Braves, and then there was no turning back. The Phils went 21-6 in the month of September, heating up for the season's home stretch. The Braves stayed hot on their trail until about September 12th, and that's when the Phils began an 11-game winning streak. It was a winning streak that included the sweep of the Braves. The Phils clinched the NL East on September 27th on the back of Doc Halladay, who pitched a 2-hit complete game shutout. In fact, for the 2010 season, Doc Halladay did not disappoint. He made baseball history early in the season, and that's an event that we're going to talk about sometime in the future. And as for the rest of the season, he made his 7th All-Star appearance. He won 21 games and posted a winning percentage of .677. He added 219 strikeouts to his career total, averaged 7.9 strikeouts per 9 innings, and had a ratio of walks and hits per innings pitched of a respectable 1.041. His ERA, which was already below 3 for the previous 2 years, dropped to 2.44. 2010 was already an incredible season for Roy Halladay. Those numbers would earn him another Cy Young Award, joining an elite club of players who won the Cy Young in both leagues. The Phils' first opponent in the 2010 postseason was the Cincinnati Reds. They were two teams coming to the postseason from opposite directions. Whereas this was the 4th season in a row that the Phillies had won their division and along the way posted the best record in the major leagues, the Reds had ended a playoff drought that dated back to 1995. Now in the year before, 2009, the Reds did have a losing record. But on July 31st, when they were just 1 game away from being in the NL Central basement, they traded for Scott Rowland, a former Philly. And while their record in August was mediocre at best, it was still an improvement over their dismal July. But the Reds finished strong in the month of September. And in the offseason, they scored the young Cuban flamethrower, Aroldis Chapman. And thus, the outlook for the Reds in 2010 was better. And the Reds did not disappoint. Rowland turned in a batting average of .285. At age 23, Jay Bruce hit 25 home runs and posted a batting average of .281. He made his first All-Star team. And Joey Votto, also an All-Star, led the team with 37 home runs and had 113 RBIs. As for Chapman, he made his Major League debut on August 31st. He finished the 2010 season, having appeared in 15 games and pitched 13 1/3 innings. His ERA was an impressive 2.03. Plus, he fanned 19 batters for a strikeouts per 9 innings ratio of 12.8. Now in the regular season, the Reds didn't fare too well against the Phillies. They had a record of 2 wins and 5 losses. But this was a team that certainly was not to be taken for granted. And so, for the first game of the National League Divisional Series, the Phillies put their 21-game winner on the mound, Roy Halladay. And this was Halladay's first ever postseason start, because the Blue Jays, his former team, had themselves been in a playoff drought ever since beating the Phillies in the 1993 World Series. The Phillies, playing on their home field at Citizens Bank Park, struck first. Batting second, the Phillies center fielder Shane Victorino reached second on a double. He then stole third during Chase Utley's at-bat. Utley then proceeded to hit a fly ball to right field. Victorino scored on a sacrifice fly, and as Halladay continued to have 1, 2, 3 innings with the Reds, the Phils padded their lead. Halladay himself got involved in the scoring in the second inning, as he drove in his catcher Carlos Ruiz on a left field single. And after Jimmy Rollins walked to load the bases, Victorino knocked in Wilson Valdez and Halladay on a single to center field. By the 5th inning, Halladay had rung up 5 strikeouts. He then faced Jay Bruce. Bruce walked, and this would wind up being the only blot on Halladay's evening. Halladay claimed that he was only staying aggressive and trying to win the game. Phil Sheridan of the Philadelphia Inquirer reported, as the game wore on, as the number of outs remaining dwindled to 9, then to 6, then to 3, The Phillies dugout grew quieter, while the frenzied, towel-waving fans grew louder and more excited. In the top of the ninth inning, the Phillies faithful were on their feet. Halladay had gotten the leadoff batter, Ramon Hernandez, to pop up to chase Utley. Then, Miguel Cairo came to the plate. After working a 2-2 count, Cairo hit a pop-fly foul that was caught by Phillies third baseman Wilson Valdez. With 1 out left, Halladay faced Brandon Phillips. Halladay got ahead of Phillips with a count of no balls and 2 strikes. On the 0-2 pitch, Phillips hit a weak ground ball. Ruiz rushed to pick up the ball and threw it to first baseman Ryan Howard. Halladay had done it. He had once again made history in the 2010 season. In the entire history of postseason baseball, there had only been one other time when a pitcher no-hit the opponent. And that was back in 1956, when Don Larsen of the Yankees threw a perfect game against the Brooklyn Dodgers. And Halladay's no-hitter? It was his first ever playoff game. Needless to say, he did not crack under pressure. The Phils went on to manhandle the Reds, beating them in the second game by a score of 7-4. This included a 3-run 7th inning off the rookie superstar Aroldis Chapman. In the third game, Cole Hamels blanked the Reds in a complete game shutout. The Phils had won 2-0 and swept the Reds out of the NLDS. But the Phils, they didn't fare as well in the NLCS. They lost in 6 games to the San Francisco Giants. Now, the Giants went on to win the World Series. And although the Phillies gave their hometown fans some postseason excitement in 2010, the season still wound up being something of a disappointment. After all, the team that had the best record in baseball failed to reach the World Series. This would, of course, prompt the Phils to take even more drastic measures in the 2010 offseason, this time setting up that memorable 2011 season. But that's the topic for another video on another day. For now, as we watch the playoffs from outside the bubble, let us bask in the tales of glory from postseasons that seem so long, long ago. Show your hometown pride. Philadelphia baseball history merchandise, t-shirts, phone cases, masks, notebooks, mugs, and more. Check out the exclusive designs in our merch store and celebrate your favorite Philadelphia-based team. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. If you have any ideas for topics that we can cover in the future, please let us know in the comments below. If you would like to see more of these videos, please consider becoming a patron through Patreon. Again, we'll have a link in the description box below.